Okay, so let me make sure this is sharing the right screen. All right, so this is showing Google Gemini, which if you didn't know, Google Gemini will allow you to actually build applications. I learned this by accident, actually. It'll actually code an application for you from prompts. And I learned this because I was using a program called Firebase. And I figured Firebase being made by Google was was able to maybe possibly give instructions better than I could to Firebase, because sometimes I would give instructions to Firebase to make an application for me, and it wouldn't do the best job. And so I was like, okay, let me get Gemini to give me the right prompts so that Firebase can build my code. And by accident, asking it to build a prompt for Firebase, Gemini was just like, I can do you one better. I'll just make the application. So after I learned that, it actually helped me a ton because when I can't make a program the right way in Firebase, and Firebase is, I don't know if it's just been taking a downhill plummet, but it hasn't been getting better. It's actually seemed like it's getting less effective because a lot of errors are being created when it spins up an application for you. And sometimes it seems like it's it seems like it's possibly throttling your performance every time you create a new application. So like I'll create an application, like this particular application that I'm about to talk about here that Google Gemini ended up having to make for me. I tried it once on Google Firebase and it did a prototype. I mean, of course that's what its purpose is to build a prototype. It built that prototype and it didn't work well the first time. And so I tried to one thing I do like about Firebase is that it does create, it does give you an option where you can like click a specific part. Like, I mean, for here we can highlight and like paste, but like it's an option on Firebase so you can like click it and then you can highlight the specific section of the code and then you can write something needs to be changed about this part right here. And when I did that, it worked well in the past for other applications, but for this one right here that I was trying to make, which was essentially a replacement for a software development assistant. I needed someone to be able to tell me basically how to code because I don't know how to code. It just went downhill. Like it started okay and then it just got worse and worse and worse the more information I tried to give it. And so um this isn't the project that I learned that you can create applications in Gemini, but this was a few after I created a couple of other applications and I just used this time to make this particular application because Firebase wasn't getting a job done. This is one of a handful of times where I had to do this. But actually this one was done fairly well by Gemini. And so what I did was I basically said like well, I gave a couple of edits since I made the original, but the original I basically said I need you to take a repository and I need you to be able to break it down in sections and categorize it so that I understand like, all right, this snippet of code applies to X. So it says right here, like this is the code categorization and breakdown. So it says like keys.py. I say like open API key, you can find it in keys.py, and it'll explain in plain English explanation this variable holds the secret key needed to authenticate request to open a API, and it's found in keys.py, which I uploaded this file, and I can upload a max of 20 files. I put that in there just because I mean I could have made it more than 20 files, but that's just what I did because I figured like anything beyond 20 might be a little outrageous for Gemini to try to figure out. But at the same time, um, my applications aren't going to be that large anyway. So this one that I'm particularly working with only has about 9 files, I want to say. So I uploaded 7 of them. And so it'll take bits and pieces. So it's okay. I don't necessarily know how long this has been off, so I'm gonna share again. Share screen, share, and I'm gonna share this tab, share options. Okay. All right. So I built this code with Gemini, and its function is basically take a repository, which you see here, I paste it in, and break down, what it's all about. So I already uploaded the files. You can click here to choose files, and I can choose more files if I want to upload more. It's still a prototype, so if I upload more now, it might just start from scratch. But once it does that, it basically analyzes it and breaks it down. If I lose Zoom one more time, I'm gonna lose my mind. Okay. Hopefully, I'm sharing now. Um, this video has been lost connection with Zoom multiple times, so it probably is terrible, but we'll see how it goes. But so this is the thing. Um, what this application is supposed to do is take a large repository and explain in plain English what it does. And so you can see here, this is a code I took from this school, Josh Matacor's OpenAI. Um, the agentic Python um, application. So it's meant to gather logs from Azure, review threats, and identify where there's a threat and isolate that particular machine with after a request has been approved by the user. And so you can see here it starts to explain like main.py saying like the user message equals prompt management.get user. Um, and it's saying this gets the analyst's initial input, such as I'm worried about the Windows target one may have been maliciously logged into in the last few days. And so we can find that in the main underscore main.py file, this one right here. And then the executor.py. Um, now what it really just breaks down small pieces and it's a little sporadic. It I'm not doing this on purpose. It's just my Wi-Fi connection being bad, just terrible. Um, but anyways, executor.py. So it's saying it'll say like sends the user's request to an LLM, and it also lists available tools, forcing the LLM to structure the response as a function call, deciding exactly what logs to search. So you can take like Uh, if you wanted to look into the actual file itself, you would just look in the executed.py file, and then you would look for response equals OpenAI, create a specific create a chat client in OpenAI with a specific model. The model is specified in model management, and then insert the message that we have from here, user message. So you can see here message equals system message, and as well as user message, and then tools equals prompt management dot tools. So that would be found here. And then your tool equals tool underscore choice equals required. And so, explanation here. So you get all the explanations on each particular section. Uh, Extracts the function call generated by AI. Now, what I haven't confirmed is that it's pulling all of the code. Um, I've seen that it pulls a good amount of the code, very important specific areas of the code, but I don't necessarily know if it pulls all of the code. Now, one thing I do need to do is pull this code from here, and I need to back it up just in case, for whatever reason, something goes wrong with Gemini and it loses my project. I'm actually surprised that I haven't already done this, but I was very distracted this morning. Probably could just copied it. All right. So I'm gonna take this is what I like to do because one thing I do like is that Gemini is good with putting all the code in one strip. And so I need to add a subtab here. Oh, this is actually the 22nd. I need to add a new tab. Uh, Code analysis. So I'm actually doing this on another tab. I love the fact that this guy on the lawnmower just loves to come in when I'm watching something or recording something. It never fails. Okay, so I backed that up, which is great. Okay. All right. So I say this code as a new version. I just need to make sure I say V3. Okay. All right. So, and you can click preview here now. In order to do this, you have to do like Canvas, the option Canvas here in Gemini, and it'll let you look through code like this, or like it'll let you generate an application like this. But you have to be very specific in your words. I always have to say like I'm going to use Firebase to create code, and then for whatever reason, when you say, "Oh, Firebase," it's going to say I can just do that here. And sometimes I've taken this code and pasted it into Firebase and just say like use this code because whatever it is that is creating is always got some type of error that is just this perpetual error that's never able to be fixed. So, but yeah, as you go through this, you'll start to see we switch from it'll say like this section is the AI planning portion of the code. This section is the configuration and API initialization. So this starts the API. This is the AI planning its query context. And then this is log data being gathered and creating a KQL query. And so this the reason why I wanted it broken down this way is because I need to be able to see which portion of the code actually specifically applies to log analysis or gathering of logs. So that way I can take these code snippets of what pertains specifically to uh, generating logs and analyzing logs and repurpose it for something else. And then you got the model management. Now, like I said, I'm pretty sure there's more code than this centered around the log portion. But at the same time, at least this tells me where it starts, and then I can go from there. Um, Maybe it just didn't want to drag out the code snippet, and which is fine. You know, I'll be able to at least I can understand this particular portion where it starts here is it talks about sending the KQL query, and if I need a particular code centered around sending the final KQL query to Azure Log Analytics, then I would take this particular snippet where it starts here, and I know where it starts at least, and then I can work from there. Now, this organizes it in a data frame, which I'm familiar with because we actually did that recently. And yeah, converts return log. So this is after this gives me a give me good context because this says, all right, this is where you send the KQL query. This is where you build the KQL query, and this is where you get return data from the KQL query and structure it. So with that information, I can kind of tell where things stop and start, where the functions stop and start within the code, which is great because now I can piece it together a lot easier. And then you have model management and compliance. So this particular piece is interesting because this code doesn't specifically relate to compliance. Um, but it's mainly focused in on token count. So this just talks about how much the tokens cost based on the input and return. So I think that just might need to be changed. I mean, let's see. This set of functions ensures that the AI operations remain within cost. Okay, so that's fine. Sometimes it gets these summaries or um, descriptions wrong. So this right here says estimates the total number of tokens system user prompts includes the large log data set will consume, which is essential for managing cost and model limits. So that's good. Yep, because that definitely explains that there. Checks the calculated input token count against the model's absolute input limit. So this takes this return and this verifies if it's beyond the limit, and and then this tells you just like it says here, if the limits are exceeded, it provides suggestions on how to reduce the log volume. And then you have guardrails.py, this a final check to ensure that the language model selected for the analysis phase is especially listed as allowed model. If model not allowed, then exit. So now that part is interesting, and that's actually good to know because one thing I remember from that is um, you couldn't, for whatever reason, use GPT 4.0. And I think that was because the models in the model management didn't include GPT 4.0. I don't know if it was incapable of doing it or whether they just, the code just didn't specify it because maybe the majority of the code was written for GPT-5. That's really what we were running. But the thing about GPT-5 is I want to say it cost. The tokens actually cost. I don't know if GPT-4 actually cost for the tokens. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure. So that's something I still that's been on my to-do list that I still need to figure out. And then this is where the threat hunt starts. So this gives me a good idea of how everything is working. Now, one thing I also want to go through as well is there's a what you call here is a file and function dependency map. So the how it connects, which is, if you're not really a software developer, you just see a bunch of code and a bunch of files and you don't really necessarily see what's going on. So this gives you this file connects to this file at this line, user underscore management equals prompt underscore management dot get user message. And then now you can see how it's saying user message is found in prompt management dot get user message. Now, when you go into prompt management, you just look for the portion of the code that says define get user message, where it says right here, prompt management dot get user message. It's kind of pretty self-explanatory given the fact that they say prompt management dot get underscore user message. I mean, it kind of specifies it starts here and then it trails off to here. I mean, without putting like an arrow to like from here to here. I mean, just like this does, has an arrow, but it just does a dot, which is that gives me good context because I didn't know that before. I didn't know that I can just when I read it, it would just be prompt management dot and then that defined function, as well as you got the main.py executor, and it has like unformatted query query underscore context. And I don't necessarily know if this is like best practice or it's just very well written code, but now that it's been put together like this, I'm just like, oh, duh. You know, unformatted query text is saying that this can be found in executor, and then you go into executor.py, and the next step would be find the get query context. And then defined in executor.py is def get query context. And it also has the additional details. And so majority of the stuff that you see here now, this could just be the fact that Chat Gemini was choosing the easiest parts, putting it together the same way we're understanding it now, where it's saying like utilities.sanitize. But there could be more connections than just this. But my assumption is, given the fact that I've seen that's how this works within Josh's Azure course, then it makes sense because the same kind of context was in the log analytics workspace that you would see here. Um, and you would be able to figure that out that way. Like, let's say you go into a specific log and you go underneath that log, and he was writing like PowerShell code. Now, I don't necessarily know if that's where this originated from, is like a PowerShell type format. Um, but still, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it makes sense to me. So now that I have that context, I can read this a lot better. And so we can see main.py, utilities.py. So utilities.display, query context. And then we do define in the utilities.py. So utilities.display. You see define in utilities.display underscore query underscore context. Now, the thing that you want to make sure you do is fact check this. So we're gonna unshare and reshare. And I'll share my repository. I'll share my entire screen. So that way you can see the repository and you can see, where is my repository? I know I gotta reload it. Reload window. Hopefully I clicked that fast enough. Okay. So now you can see here. Let's see if we can track this down. So it had utility. So under in main.py, we see a line that says utility.display. So let's see what we find here. And this would be the main script calls this function to print the finalized log search parameters. So table name, time range, filters. Now, being familiar with this, this lets me know that this also relates to logs. And so now I gotta make sure that this is correct. Well, it says query context, so that makes sense because it's pulling um a KQL query, Kusto query language query context. And so we go to utility or main.py, we look for utilities.display. Let's see what we can find here. So we're in main.py and utilities.display right here. And now the thing is, I want to say, so this shows you, I wonder if you can, ooh, go to the definition. So I could have just did it this way the whole time. So if you click on it here and you click go to definition, it would map it for you. So, I mean, to be honest with you, like I'm still learning this, but so utilities.display, click on utilities, and it says define display is it underscore threads, display underscore query context. Okay, right here. Define display underscore query context. And then this tells you, yep, table name, time range, fields. So that's correct. You can see here is it's displaying all of the context of the query itself, which you're going to be pulling from Azure Log Analytics. So this is making a lot of sense, which I'm glad that it is because the mapping is great, and I'm glad that I'll probably be able to use this on our Thursday session. It helped me better understand how this is gonna work. So let's see. Let's try another one. So in main.py, you have log analytics workspace query results. So we'll see. Is that main.py? Execute. Yeah. So this right here is found in main.py, and then it links to executor.query log analytics. So this is like, I probably should have seen this before, but given the fact that it was broken down this way, it just made more sense. So if we go to main.py and we find query right here, log analytics query results executor. Yes, ma'am. You gotta wait because I gotta finish this video. Another wants to go outside or something. So let's see, log analytics workspace query results executor equals executor dot query log analytics. It's about time for your bath too, man. You know you got to get a bath today. Executor dot query log analytics. So you click executor, and now that I figured this out, I can just click go to definition, and then we go to executor, and it didn't necessarily say. It says executor, and then the next step would be query.log analytics. Uh, dot query underscore log analytics. So control F, query dot. We got to switch back. Let's see. Query underscore log analytics. Query underscore log analytics. And right there, I wish it would have just, I mean, I guess it's just me being lazy, thinking like, why couldn't it just take me there when I clicked? I wonder, is that maybe that's a declaration. Go to declaration. Oh, yeah, it did. Okay. So if I go, let's see, if I click go to definition. Oh, yeah, it took me there. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I had everything that I needed. Go to definition, it takes you right there. So the mapping is there. I just didn't know how to use it. So I really didn't need this app, but still, all I had to do was kind of click and explore now to figure this out. So this is saying workspace ID is found in keys, and then inside keys, you go to log analytics, but you can go to open definition, go to keys, log analytics, workspace ID right there. So I probably spent more time trying to make an application that did something that was already a built-in function. But whatever, I still got to learn that whole process. And at the same time, too, I like this application because I can probably take another program and do the same thing, and just plug it in with that code. So, all right, so let's see what we got here. I think that's going to be about it for what I want to record on this